Hi there. This is a collaboration with my dear friend 𝒕𝒍�𝒄. This series contains, obviously, a lot of sexual content, therefore I won't upload everything in here. The AO3 link for the whole story, it's currently still ongoing, is in the info box, so check it out. Now enjoy watching the first chapter. Biological demands should be met. A SakuAtsu story. He blames the internet. It is the cause of all things that goes wrong in his life. He knows he shouldn't have listened to the idiots he called his teammates, maybe even friends. They were the reason he was in the situation he's in now, elbows deep into a relationship that had no reason being formed in the first place. If Hinata hadn't come running into practice with that damn internet test, he wouldn't have been in this mess. His emotions wouldn't be all over the place. He wouldn't be stuck with unrequited feelings for an annoyingly loud, arrogant blonde. He's stupid for thinking this would be fine. Truly stupid for thinking his crush on one Atsumu has subsided after 4 years of university. He never expected those feelings to hit him like a truck driving 100 miles per hour. The emotions that he kept in a box. Put said box in a bin, locked that container in a chest, and buried it 6 feet under the darkest pit of his soul. Never saw the light of day, emerged in a matter of mere months. He thought it couldn't get worse, and yet here he is, tied up, unable to move, and about to get done by the very person he never wanted to be involved with in the first place. It all started with a fucking internet test. Guys, guess what Kenma showed me yesterday night? Hinata said, completely out of his mind as he rushed into the locker room with his brightly lit display. He flailed his phone. The grin on his face couldn't be any bigger, and his eyes were wide with excitement, literally sparkling, and they all knew Hinata was up to some mischief again. 𝒕𝒍�𝒄 rolled his eyes and sighed. It was only 8 AM, and the short ginger spiker was already throwing his whole day into turmoil again, suspecting that he was about to put him into a situation he absolutely did not want to be in. What's up, Sho? Asked Bakuto, who by now was infected by Hinata's stupidly wide grin and couldn't stifle his own laugh at how excited Shoyo was. Hinata tossed his duffel bag onto the bench and walked over to Bakuto with his phone gripped tightly in his hands, his smirk growing even wider. Look, he started. Inunaki had joined them by now, and Atsumu was also peeking over his shoulder as he was about to put on his training shirt. Kenma sent me a link to this test. What test? Mian asked curiously, watching his teammates with amusement. Hinata's gaze flashed briefly from the display up to Mian, his expression becoming even more mischievous. This BDSM test. Atsumu paused briefly as he fixed his waistband and turned slowly to the trio by now. He watched his teammates with wide, intrigued eyes, flickering with curiosity in such an intensity that it was almost frightening. BDSM. Well, this could get interesting. Atsumu moved closer to look at the website over Hinata's shoulder. Shoyo's screen was littered with red, green, and white text on a black screen. Atsumu raised his eyebrow as he saw the white text scrawled on the type of the site. Let's test the kink out of you, Atsumu whispered to himself, a chill of excitement going down his body before he had a chance to think about it. Sho, did you take it? I want to take it too. Bakuto said, taking out his phone excitedly. Calm down, Bokken. We have practice to worry about right now, Atsumu said as he slipped on his shoes, although he actually wanted to do this test at least as much. It wouldn't hurt to spare a few minutes of practice for this, Inunaki said with a wide grin. I don't like where this is going, Thomas whispered to Mian, who was sitting with his back to the locker, watching the chaos ensure. What's the worst that could happen? Mian said, expecting this to be a light-hearted team-building exercise, nothing more. How long is the quiz? Atsumu asked out of curiosity. Well, there are 2 different ones. There's a short version and a long version. Hinata explained the difference between the 2 tests and what they measured according to what Kenma told him. The long one took me about 20 minutes to finish. Say, Mian? Inunaki said with a mischievous tone lacing his voice. His brows were raised, and his eyes were wide open, looking at his captain almost pleadingly. 𝒕𝒍�𝒄 saw that as his cue to leave. No way was he getting dragged into whatever mess these idiots were cooking up in their brains. He sensed it when Hinata entered the locker room with that dorky grin, but this right now just kept getting even more ridiculous and worse. Omi, where you going? Atsumu asked in a teasing tone and Kyumi flinched. He turned to their setter with a scowl on his face and met the blonde's mischievous expression. Screw you, Atsumu. There's no way I'm taking this test. We have practice now, 𝒕𝒍�𝒄 said blankly, but Mian objected. Come on, 𝒕𝒍�𝒄. Practice can wait. This here could be quite fun. Let me see. Shoyo, their captain said while he pushed himself off the lockers and walked towards Hinata. Here. The small spiker held out his phone so that Mian could enter the link into his own. So practice starts later today? Inunaki asked, his grin growing even wider. A smile pulled at the corner of Mian's lips, suppressing a smirk as he slyly replied, 20 minutes won't kill us, right? No way. I'd rather do something useful with my time. Not some dumb internet test. SakuAtsu said, turning on his heel to exit the locker room. Come on, Omi. Don't be such a buzzkill. Atsumu said, crossing over to SakuAtsu, standing just a ways from the door. I just think you're too chicken to take the test, Atsumu teased, throwing an elbow to SakuAtsu's side. SakuAtsu glared at him as he moved over slightly. I'm not. It just seems like a waste of time. Time we could be using to train. SakuAtsu said with a frown settling on his face. We got to have a break sometimes, SakuAtsu-san. I'm sure coach won't mind. Hinata said, going around showing the rest of the team the website. Don't worry, show. He's too scared to find out his results. Inunaki chimed in with the teasing. SakuAtsu rolled his eyes. He wasn't afraid, nor was he going to let them think he was. Give me the damn website, SakuAtsu said as he pulled out his phone. Atsumu smiled widely as he showed SakuAtsu the link. Kyumi went to sit down in the corner, away from everyone else. He didn't want everyone to see his answers or results when he finished. The questions were super personal and intrusive, SakuAtsu thought, as he went through them. Some were super tame, others bordered on the more extreme side. Nonetheless, he answered everyone with complete honesty. I got my results, Bakuto said, waving his phone in the air excitedly. Let me see. Hinata said, looking over to his phone sifting through the results. The others all gathered around, peeking at the list and their percentages. Vanilla at 100%, Bakuto-san? I was sure you'd have something spicier at the top. Inunaki said with a smirk plastered on his face. Yeah, but you can't skip over the 93% masochist. Vulcan, you into that stuff? Atsumu said, a teasing tone lacing his voice. Bakuto's cheeks tinted a slight pink. What's your results then, Atsumu? Bakuto said defensively. Atsumu showed his phone to the group with a confident smirk plastered on his face. Jesus, Atsumu, Mian said as his eyes scanned the results. Hinata popped his head in to get a look at the results, and his eyes got all wide. Oh my god. I knew you were dominant, Atsumu-san, but 93%. Hinata exclaimed, scanning over the rest of the results, and SakuAtsu's head snapped up. What? What can I say? I'm naturally like that, Atsumu said, hands on his hips and that mischievous, cocky smirk chiseled into his face. Oh, Atsumu was smug and overconfident. Yes, but these test results made it even worse. This is a joke, was all SakuAtsu thought as he kept a tight grip on his phone and stared back at his screen, scanning his own results. How can Atsumu be 93% dominant when he himself was 100% submissive? SakuAtsu was sure this had to be a joke. Ooh, but look at that, 89% switch. Even Thomas joined in by now, and Inunaki almost screamed. No, but look at the 80% brat tamer. That made SakuAtsu snort. Atsumu, a brat tamer? No way, this has to be a mistake. He is definitely the brat. Atsumu raised a brow while looking in Kyumi's direction, his smirk still placed on his face. What are you laughing about, Omi-kun? Nothing. SakuAtsu said blankly and turned his gaze back to his phone. At this point, the whole MSBY team had gathered around Atsumu to examine his results, with the exception of SakuAtsu, who was still seated in the corner and just looking at how fucking proud that arrogant setter was. SakuAtsu couldn't have rolled his eyes back any further. You envy my results? Guess a brat like you has a pretty high percentage on that, huh? What are your results, Omi? SakuAtsu scoffed. Fucking asshole. He blushed slightly and scowled at Atsumu. The idiot was right, of course, because SakuAtsu was 87% brat according to the test. I'm not done yet, he mumbled, lying, and hid his face behind his screen. Never in his life would he show them his results, especially not since Atsumu seemed to have too many counterparts to his own results. Bullshit, Atsumu spat out as he drew near SakuAtsu. You started the same time as I did. SakuAtsu rolled his eyes. Atsumu tried to peek at his screen, only for SakuAtsu to push Atsumu's face away from him. What the hell? Just show me your fucking scores. It's not that hard. Everyone else did it. Atsumu said through his squished lips. SakuAtsu leveled a death glare at the blonde when a sickening smirk crossed Atsumu's face. Your score's too embarrassing to share, Omi, Atsumu said, smirk showing between SakuAtsu's fingers. SakuAtsu blushed and stammered out a response. Fuck off. No, I just told you I didn't finish it. Atsumu laughed as SakuAtsu pushed him away. It's okay, SakuAtsu-san. We won't judge you, Hinata said, offering control damage to Atsumu's constant teasing. Yeah, your results couldn't possibly be worse than 𝒂𝒄𝒆𝒔's 100% vanilla, Inunaki said with a full body laugh. 𝒂𝒄𝒆𝒔 let out an exasperated groan. I'm not sharing mine. End of discussion. SakuAtsu said as he got up from the corner of the locker room, making his way over to the door, but Atsumu preceded him. He ran in the same direction and blocked Kyuumi's way with an outstretched arm. Sly grin still plastered onto his face and eyebrows raised. See more Omi. What could be so bad about it? Huh? Atsumu let a finger slide over SakuAtsu's chest as he teased him further. Are you trying to hide the fact that you're 93% the exact opposite of my dominance? 93% submissive, maybe? Atsumu twitched his eyebrows, and Kyuumi blushed hard. His whole body tensed, his eyes shot wide open, obviously revealing that Atsumu caught him. The blonde's expression couldn't have changed any quicker. Atsumu gasped. Holy shit. You don't really have that high percentage of submissiveness, do ya? Atsumu said with wide eyes. SakuAtsu did his best to muster any semblance of a glare, the blow softened by the redness of his cheeks. I do not. Would you stop pestering me now? Kyuumi slapped his arm away to finally get to the gym, leaving a startled Atsumu behind as he stomped off. Technically, SakuAtsu wasn't lying. His scores for submissive weren't as high as Atsumu assumed them to be, they were even higher. Atsumu put his hands on his hips and watched SakuAtsu march off towards the gym. He tilted his head, licked his lips, and summoned that smug grin back to his face. Submissive, huh? Hot. Well, with that, let's get to practice everyone and Mia. Don't bother SakuAtsu. Mian leveled a stern glare at Atsumu as he spoke, voice laced with seriousness. Atsumu smirked, a mischievous glint in his eye. Aye, Captain, Atsumu said teasingly, saluting. Mian narrowed his eyes at the blonde. This is going to be a disaster. Throughout practice, SakuAtsu would catch his gaze shifting over to stare at Atsumu, his mind racing at the events in the locker room. There was no way his scores were so high in categories that differed from his personality entirely. There had to have been an error on the website's part for Atsumu to get his like that. He was not 100% submissive, he just couldn't be. These thoughts plagued SakuAtsu during the whole practice, even causing him to mess up serves and receives. Halfway through practice, he plopped on the bench with a huff, towel around his neck, catching the sweat from his curls. He brought the towel up to wipe off his brow when he felt a weight being put on his shoulder. Wow, Omi. You seem pretty distracted today. SakuAtsu mentally groaned, his eyes rolling impossibly far into the back of his head. Could this day get any worse? Is it because of your results? Were they that bad that it's got you off your game? Atsumu spoke with a teasing voice as he turned, eyebrows wiggling at the implications. It's not my scores I'm concerned with, SakuAtsu thought as he moved over on the bench, causing Atsumu to fall over. Don't touch me, Mia, and no, I'm not. I had completely forgotten about that whole series of events until you came. That was the biggest lie SakuAtsu had ever told. Not only was he actively thinking about the entire situation in the locker room, but he was also planning to retake the quiz to prove his first scores wrong. Mia can't be more dominant than him. Whatever you say, Omi. Atsumu got up from his spot, making his way back over to Hinata and 𝒂𝒄𝒆𝒔. SakuAtsu found himself staring at his fleeing figure. Damn you, Mia. For the rest of practice, SakuAtsu pointedly ignored Atsumu unless he was required to. Time flew by before he knew it, the final whistles of practice being blown. After a brief team meeting, the players were free to leave, which SakuAtsu took, bolting to the locker room, gathering his things, and getting out of there before any of his teammates could corner him into continuing the conversations. SakuAtsu walked quickly back to his apartment with one thing on his mind. I have to retake that damn test. He shouldn't have retaken the test. SakuAtsu stood at his kitchen island, computer sitting on the countertop displaying the things he was most afraid of. The answers were the same. SakuAtsu had taken the test 4 times already, each attempt trying to vary his answers. Yet, the results are the same, and they mocked him as he stared at the black screen. A deep frown was etched onto his face as he read over the results from the last test attempt. 100% submissive? Not true. 93% rope bunny? What even is that? 90% masochist? He hates pain. 87% brat? He's not even that bratty. 84% degradee? He'd much rather degrade. He does it anyway. 81% experimentalist? He hates trying things that would be uncomfortable to him. 70% switch? He'd rather top than bottom. 65% exhibitionist? He doesn't even change in front of the team. 60% prey? What is this? We aren't wolves. The list went on, and the one SakuAtsu was expecting to get had low percentages. There had to be something wrong with the algorithm. The only one he even remotely agreed with was his vanilla score. It wasn't as high as Bakuto's, only about 55%. SakuAtsu wasn't surprised by that score. He had never really enjoyed having sex in the vanilla sense, whether on the giving or receiving. He hadn't had many experiences, but the ones he did have were subpar. SakuAtsu sighed and closed his laptop. He'd already spent more time than he needed to on this. The results meant nothing. They didn't exactly define who he was, and it definitely wasn't going to let it affect him like it did today. He'd bury these results in the back of his brain where all the unnecessary thoughts resided. SakuAtsu was content with this conclusion until there was a knock on his door. He walked over and opened it, then frowned when he found a certain blonde setter in front of him. Mia. He was greeted by a broadly grinning Atsumu, who had his hands loosely tucked into the pockets of his jacket and was shooting him an increasingly mischievous look. Hey, Omi, what are you doing here? It's fucking SakuAtsu held onto his door and leaned back slightly to be able to look at the clock in his living room. 11 p.m. We have practice tomorrow. He raised a brow and eyed the setter closely. Of course, of all people, it had to be Mia Atsumu who showed up outside his apartment right now. Will you be thinking about how my dominance matches your submissiveness again? SakuAtsu stared at Atsumu deadpan before taking a step back and slamming the door in his face. And damn those setters for their great reflexes. Atsumu jammed his foot into the crack of the door at the last second to prevent it from shutting. He opened it and stepped inside, the smug grin from earlier today back in full glory. You can say what you want, but it was obvious that this test has been on your mind all practice. See more Nomi, show me your results. I'm interested to see if we have any more matching pairs, Atsumu said as he intruded into SakuAtsu's apartment as a matter of course. Kyumi turned around and groaned, rolled his eyes, and was visibly annoyed. Fuck off, Mia. I never invited you in. SakuAtsu said, back still turned as he walked back to the kitchen. He needed a beer. His mental status was slowly declining with every interaction with these idiots. Oh, but I know you want me here. Atsumu gave SakuAtsu back a smug smile as he pulled off his shoes and set them to the side. He walked into the kitchen behind SakuAtsu, hopping on an empty stool around Kyumi's kitchen island. No, in fact, I wish you'd leave, SakuAtsu said, head dipping into the fridge to pull out a drink. You probably were doing anything, anyways. You need to be more sociable, Omi. Could I have one? SakuAtsu rose out of the fridge, beer in hand with a deadpan expression on his face. He looked at Atsumu, who had a sickening innocent smile on his face like he didn't come here to stir up trouble. If you leave, SakuAtsu said, a fake cheeky smile crossing his face as he closed the fridge. Atsumu pouted, arms crossed at his chest, sulking in his seat. SakuAtsu rolled his eyes and sighed, placing the beer in his hand in front of the blonde and reaching into the fridge to grab another. Atsumu's smug grin returned as he grabbed the beer, taking a sip from it. SakuAtsu sat down, leaning back in his seat, and stared at Atsumu. The setter raised a brow, grin growing ever so slightly. SakuAtsu narrowed his eyes at him. He was up to something, and SakuAtsu didn't like it. What? Atsumu said, grin turning into a mischievous smirk. What do you want, Mia? Kyumi scowled at the blonde. He should have just kicked him out. Why did he even offer him a drink? Why did he even open the door? He should have just slammed the door even harder in his smug ass face. But, no, he chose to suffer. What did he do in his past life to deserve this? He should never have taken that damn test. If it weren't for his pride, he wouldn't be in this mess. Told you I wanna see your results. Omi-kun. Atsumu leaned forward, chin resting in the palm of his hand. And that smirk, God, SakuAtsu wished he could slap it off his face. He knows that Atsumu's loving every second of this torture. Yeah, that's not going to happen, SakuAtsu said, taking a swig of his beer. He's going to need every ounce of it to make it through the hell he's being subjected to. Embarrassed? Ha, Omi? He twitched his brows, honey-colored eyes still locked with the dark obsidian ones of Kyumi. Why don't you just fuck off already, Mia? SakuAtsu said, slight anger laced in his voice. Atsumu knew just how to push his buttons in the right way to make him tick. Not until I see the results, Atsumu insisted, fingers drumming on the countertop like he was impatiently waiting for SakuAtsu to break, to give him what he wanted. He wasn't going into a ditch he hadn't dug so easily. He was going to fight like hell. But so was Atsumu because he knew SakuAtsu had more intriguing results to reveal, and he wasn't leaving here until he got them. Do you know what the word no means? Or does your brain not have the capability to? Kyumi pinched the bridge of his nose and closed his eyes, an exasperated sigh leaving his lips. A snicker escaped from Atsumu's lips, causing SakuAtsu to glare at him. What are you afraid of? Scared that I found out that I was right with my assumption that you're submissive? 𝒂i𝒄 cringed. His scowl became even more sinister. He scoffed as he shook his head slightly. I don't have to be scared when I am clearly not submissive, 𝒂i𝒄 said defensively, blush tinting his cheeks a light pink. Atsumu's face is looking real punchable right now. Then show me. He lifted his palm to Kyumi while his chin remained in his other hand and waited for the spiker to hand him his phone. Eyebrows raised and a smirk chiseled onto his face. 𝒂i𝒄 clicked his tongue at the blonde, annoyance settling onto his face. I'm going to the bathroom, 𝒂i𝒄 said, rolling his eyes and getting up from his position on the stool. Don't touch anything. 𝒂i𝒄 glared at Atsumu, whose face still held that annoying ass smirk. I can't. Atsumu said as he watched 𝒂i𝒄 disappear down the hall and into the bathroom. The corners of his mouth twitched, and his eyes sparkled with curiosity. Let the fun begin. Atsumu hastily got up from his chair and rushed over to 𝒂i𝒄's computer, which was placed on top of the counter. If there was one way to get his results, it was by using his laptop because the spiker had taken his phone with him. So Atsumu flipped it open, turned it on, and while waiting for the computer to boot up, he propped his palms against the edge of the counter, tapping his fingers impatiently on top until suddenly a window opened up with the password prompt. Atsumu licked his lips and eagerly tried to hack into Kyumi's computer. Okay. What's your password, Omi? Your birthday maybe? Atsumu whispered and typed in the numbers, but the login failed. Too easy. He furrowed his brow and tried a few other combinations of numbers, as well as different variations with 𝒂i𝒄's name. In the end, Atsumu had clicked on that tiny link saying forgot your password, and directed him to choose whether he wanted to reset the password with his email address or if he wanted to look at the additional information and use it to enter the password once again. Resetting would mean that 𝒂i𝒄 would immediately know that Atsumu was using his computer. So Atsumu chose the additional information that said password equals favorite food. Atsumu frowned. Favorite food? He hummed, straightening up slightly and pulling his eyebrows even closer together as he pondered. His index finger lingered on his lips, his gaze wandering up towards the ceiling. He thought of all the times they had eaten together as a team. All the times 𝒂i𝒄 had gone with them, and that wasn't too often. If there was one thing Atsumu took extremely earnestly, it was looking out for his spikers, taking care of them in his wacky way, and maybe, just maybe, he had remembered 𝒂i𝒄's desires particularly well. Because there was one thing that, if it were available, he would choose over and over again. One thing that 𝒂i𝒄 simply couldn't resist. Atsumu smirked. Yumaboshi. Ding. And logged in. He was. Atsumu's eyes widened, and his heart skipped a beat at the very familiar page Hinata had shown them just this morning. Atsumu snorted as he saw 4 tabs open, all, without exception, showing the same results. Holy fuck Omi, I knew you were submissive but 100%. A chill of excitement ran down Atsumu's spine as he continued to examine 𝒂i𝒄's results with his eyes wide open. The fire in Atsumu's eyes flared wildly at the mere thought of seeing 𝒂i𝒄 submissive. Fuck. Just the idea of pressing his face into the blankets and pillows of his bed and having his ass stretched towards him, wrecking that beautiful, bratty man and making him beg for so much more. Atsumu's eyes roamed over the other results, and to say it turned him on beyond belief would be definitely an understatement. How long are you? 𝒂i𝒄 paused in the entryway of the kitchen, eyes widening as he took in the scene before him. He was not looking at Atsumu hovering over his laptop. Well, I shouldn't be worried, right? I have a password on it. 𝒂i𝒄 thought as he forced himself to relax. Yeah, there was no way he knew. Wrote bunny, hey. 𝒂i𝒄's face went pale. It was just his luck that Atsumu knew his favorite food. It was just his luck that he didn't exit out of the various tabs displaying his most embarrassing revelations. Luck. There was nothing lucky about this. It was a nightmare. A waking living nightmare. Of all the people to have discovered these things about him, it had to be this cocky, arrogant, smug bastard blonde that 𝒂i𝒄 absolutely loathed. Wow, Omi. Your scores are more impressive than I thought. Atsumu looked up at him with a knowing smirk. I'm leaving, 𝒂i𝒄 said, walking swiftly towards the door. He had to leave. There was no way he was talking about this, and with me of all people. The Adlers are still recruiting, right? Maybe being on a team with a Shijima would be less problematic for me, 𝒂i𝒄 thought as he slipped one arm in his jacket. Fingers wrapped around his wrist before he put his other arm in. Omi, 𝒂i𝒄 tensed. Don't leave. Kyumi didn't look back at the blonde, and he didn't try to pull away either. They stood there for what felt like ages until 𝒂i𝒄's voice broke the silence. Let go, Mia, 𝒂i𝒄 said, voice wavering a bit as he tried to calm his beating heart. Oh no, you're not walking out on this, Atsumu said, slight teasing in his voice as he tightened his hold on 𝒂i𝒄's wrist. The spiker snapped his gaze to him, meeting hungry eyes that were defiant with excitement and curiosity. SakuAtsu gulped, his eyes wide open, and felt the slight blush rise and spread in his cheeks. "You're right," he began. "You're going to leave now," SakuAtsu said demandingly, but Atsumu pulled him close, letting his fingers ghost over SakuAtsu's jawline, and spoke almost seductively. "Weren't you 81% experimentalist? Fits damn well with my 74%, don't you think? Kyumi? Fuck, what is this?" SakuAtsu's heart tripped over its own beat. Atsumu's fingers were driving him insane. SakuAtsu did what he thought was the only right thing to do. He tore himself apart from the blonde and pushed Atsumu back. Kyumi had to catch his breath, had to pull himself together somehow. "It's just a test. It's just a fucking test. How the hell can you remember my results so well?" SakuAtsu snapped at him. "I'm a professional setter, Omi-kun. I have a knack for memorizing." His gaze roamed over SakuAtsu, and he spoke in a tempting yet soft tone. "I just have to look at you, and I just know immediately what's going on in your head." Atsumu licked his lips, the smug grin impossible to remove. SakuAtsu took off his jacket and hung it back on the coat hook. He then scowled at Atsumu. "Leave now." He saw the results. "So what? It's just a test, nothing more. And it's only me. Who would believe him if he spread the word anyway? Or, Omi-kun, don't be like that. I think this is a good thing, you know." SakuAtsu didn't like the look in Atsumu's eye. The way they raked over his body before settling back on his eyes, it was too sensual for his liking. "Stop looking at me like that. Leave." SakuAtsu's resolve was slowly breaking with every flicker of Atsumu's gaze over his body. The implications he's making aren't missed. SakuAtsu isn't dense. No, he just does not want to have Atsumu thinking he won. That asshole's ego is already on a high enough pedestal. Don't need to inflate it more. God, he should never have left Atsumu alone. He should never have allowed him to enter his apartment. He should never have taken that stupid test. Fucking MSBY. Back to the rope bunny, Atsumu pulled SakuAtsu out of his thoughts. He stared at the blonde with his eyes wide open. SakuAtsu gulped. His lips were pressed together and locked, afraid to fall for Atsumu's gaze and blurt out something dumb. "You're into that stuff." It seemed almost impossible, but SakuAtsu's eyes widened even more. His face flushed harder. He averted his gaze from the blonde and pushed past him back into the kitchen. "Beer. Or something stronger." Atsumu followed him closely, his hands tucked loosely in his pockets. He eyed Kyumi, who was now crouching down and searching for some liquor in one of his cupboards. Atsumu raised an eyebrow. "I mean, 93%, Omi? Didn't think you would be so. Mia. Shut the hell up." Atsumu fell silent. SakuAtsu's hands still lingered on the open cupboard as he slowly turned to face the setter. He took a deep breath and looked at the blonde pleadingly. "Just leave, please." And now it was Atsumu's eyes that were blown wide open. "Please?" That was something he never heard come out of his mouth. The word almost sounded desperate coming from Kyumi. SakuAtsu didn't know how much longer he could hold back. It is to no surprise that, despite what he tried to trick himself into thinking, his scores were accurate. Rope bunny, yes, of course. SakuAtsu had to admit that he had quite a few fantasies of being tied, unable to move. He liked the idea. Something was so tempting about it. But would he ever share his thoughts about it with anyone? Especially with Mia Atsumu? No, he'd have taken it to his grave if Atsumu didn't find out. But he did, and now he's here, drinking straight from a bottle of mango rum, trying to drown out the less than pleasant thought of letting Mia do such things to him. He can't drown these thoughts. Not while Atsumu is here. He needs him to leave. But Atsumu won't leave. He came this far and wasn't going to move until he got what he wanted. Exactly what that was, SakuAtsu didn't know, but he's sure if he finds out, he's going to regret it. Definitely. Omi, do you trust me? Does he trust him? Maybe with his sets, constant and precise. He can trust him in the volleyball world. But SakuAtsu is sure that's not what he means. Does he trust that Atsumu wouldn't do anything he didn't want? Does he trust Atsumu with his body, something he didn't trust himself with? Does he trust that this won't lead to any sort of regret? SakuAtsu's throat was dry. He tried to swallow the smallest drop of saliva and stared at Atsumu with big eyes. He lost himself entirely in his gaze. A gaze that was no longer teasing or conceited, rather determined, focused, demanding. Atsumu was indeed dominant. "I do." SakuAtsu's voice was hushed, hesitant. The words slipped over his lips without him actually wanting them to. Atsumu's eyes widened for a split second. He sucked in a sharp breath, a smile creeping over his face as he walked over to SakuAtsu's squatting figure. Atsumu brought his index finger under SakuAtsu's chin, tilting his head up to meet his gaze. 𝒑emands' breath hitched, lips slightly parting as Atsumu's thumb swiped his bottom lip. Truly a submissive. Atsumu leaned down until his lips tickled the shell of 𝒑emands' ear. A shiver went down 𝒑emands' spine as he felt Atsumu's hot breath tickling his ear. So, wanna do it? Please keep in mind that this will be the only video of BDSM because of obvious reasons. Thank you for watching and enjoy reading the rest. Link is in the info box.